They have proven with their actions what they will do to their enemies to the point of starving children in Gaza. Christians have been killed. Christian churches have been bombed. They're annihilating their enemy almost.
Totally.
They're going to finish the job, and they're saying they're going to finish the job.
So recently, Marjorie Taylor Greene went on Megyn Kelly's podcast to talk about the truth regarding Israel's genocide in Gaza, why the U.S. is complicit in this madness, what's actually happening when it comes to the starvation campaign, and why the U.S. continues to double down and support this madness. She's been in the news recently for being the first Republican in Congress to call what's happening there a genocide, so let's get her take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Is the GOP turning on you because of this, or is it just loud people who, whose interests are more closely aligned with Israel?
Well, number one, Donald Trump is the most attacked, I'd say, human being ever by the establishment media. I would say I'm the most attacked member of Congress ever by the establishment media. I have supported him unapologetically. They would love to be able to say MTG and Trump have split. And they're trying to say that, yet I talk to the president routinely. I text with him. He and I have a great relationship.
You would know if things were not good.
Yes.
I can speak to that.
Yes. Now, here's the other side of it. I got elected on my own. I didn't get elected with a Trump endorsement. I beat 8 men in a primary who I respected every single one of them. I thought, wow, these guys are great. How am I going to win? But somehow I beat the heck out of all of them. So I also have the, I would say, luxury of being a very independent member of Congress. And I can disagree with the president. I can. And I already have on multiple fronts. The Genius Act that just recently passed that set up the whole system for stablecoin. And I didn't vote for that bill because it has a backdoor for a central bank digital currency, which I am largely against.
And that's heroic. Thank you for bringing the Genius Act up. We need to do more coverage on that on this show, but she's right. She's become a pariah, not only in Washington, but among her own party for, lambasting this administration for its complicity in what's happening in Gaza, which is, I think, a genocide. She's rightly called it that, when many of her colleagues, even Democrats that are supposed to be, progressives on this, don't call it a genocide. I wish more Republicans would do that. The only reservation I have with what she said is I think Thomas Massie might even be more of a pariah and more dragged by Trump and this administration. He goes out there and blasts Thomas Massie regularly on Truth Social as well. So those two are the two that are treated that way more than anyone else, maybe Rand Paul too. And what's ironic here is that those three stood with him throughout all the Russiagate fiasco. And despite all that loyalty toward Trump and the farce that was Russiagate, he drags them but endorses people like Lindsey Graham, despite the fact that Lindsey Graham was totally complicit with trying to roll him by the deep state. So that's where we're at.
And Speaker Johnson didn't allow us to do amendments on that bill to amend that part of the bill. So I said, I'm a no vote. That was President Trump's
You were
bill.
against the bombing of Iran. You said so.
Yep, I was against bombing Iran. I'm against paying for Israel to continue to keep bombing Gaza. I think it's a humanitarian crisis. I've called it a genocide.
Thank you for that. You're a hero for doing that. Just doing that. I know you don't speak as negatively toward Israel as we do here to some extent, but that alone is heroic, if you ask me. That's a big sea change. This is indicative of a big change in America's political system.
And children are starving to death. I've talked to Christian pastors there that have told me that Christians have been killed and children are being starving against. I'm a Christian myself. I'm against children.
Let's talk about that one.
Starving.
There's daylight between us because I believe that children are starving and hurting in Gaza, no question. Mm-hmm. But I blame Hamas. I do see what's happening with the Israeli aid and the food trucks, and they get co-opted by Hamas, by certain Palestinians. And that's why, and the more suffering children they can get on a camera over there, the better in their minds. These are not honest brokers. They steal from their own people. They're happy to watch their children starve to death as long as they can put the emaciated baby on camera. It's disgusting. They don't have the same value toward human life that we do, and yes, that Israel has.
Okay, this is absurd. The children are starving because of the IDF and the GHF. which created a starvation blockade 3 months ago, kicked out all the other aid providers, those from the UN and otherwise. I don't think the UN was perfect, but instead of the UN, which was going to organize 400 aid stations there, they've reduced it to 4. 2 of which are open on any single day, and when they distribute food, guess how long it is? 15 minutes. And they just throw it on the ground, creating stampede conditions. This is a starvation crisis, and it's not Hamas doing it. It's the U.S. complicit with Israel doing it. Those starving and emaciated babies, yeah, that's not Hamas. That is Israel. That's the IDF, who's fired live rounds above these crowds, according to whistleblower Anthony Aguilar. So no, this isn't Hamas propaganda. This is actual recorded evidence from people taking pictures on TikTok, putting them on the internet, etc. So yeah, no, those babies aren't crisis actors and caused by Hamas. This is the destructive nature of the Israel First system, and this is BoomerCon mentality to just dismiss it as if it was Hamas. No, this is Israel. This is who the U.S. is bankrolling.
I'm not saying Israel's perfect. They haven't executed this whole thing perfectly, not by a long shot, but when I see what's happening with the starving children, I blame Hamas.
Well, they started
am I wrong?
it. They started it. So October 7th was unbelievably horrific. It's unspeakable what Hamas did. I totally blame Hamas. The war wouldn't even be happening if Hamas hasn't done all the things that they've done, right? Firing rockets into Israel, kidnapping and murdering all these people, suicide bombers over the years. Absolutely. They started this and it's horrible. I think it's Israel's... They can pinpoint areas, but they're just mass bombing everywhere, and the videos coming out of there are terrible. I'll also say this, Megan, that conflict has been going on I'm 51 years old. It's been going on way beyond before I was born or any of us were born. I can't even tell you I qualify to solve it. I think God is the only person that
You don't
can
think
solve it.
Gaza is the solution?
No.
All right, I have to chime in here. Obviously, Hamas's attacks against innocents were barbaric, but you can hardly say they started it. In a way, yeah, they provoked what Israel's response was in the same way that the U.S. provoked bin Laden to attack the United States by its foreign policy. These people are a subjugated people, and they have been since 1967, after the Six-Day War, in which Israel acquired that territory, annexed it, occupied it, and then subjugated the people. How did they do that? Blockades, restricting what comes in and out, circumventing their rights, not giving them the same voting rights, if that's your thing. We're not big on voting here, but it's not like they treat them as first-class citizens there. They set up a 2-tiered system of justice in which there's rarely anyone convicted of crimes against Palestinians, but vice versa. Certainly that's true. They tightly restrict the borders, such as Palestinians can't easily go in and out. There's so many perversions of individual rights of those people that you can hardly say it started with Hamas. Yeah, their response was barbaric, but Israel's response to that attack was about 100 to 200, maybe 300 times more barbaric. And you have whistleblowers that were released hostages that have said that Israel used the Hannibal Directive. This was, a potential where hundreds of people were gunned down by the IDF on October 7th. So as much as they want us to believe that history began on October 6th, that didn't happen. This is a subjugated people. They have been from the start. They have been since 1947 even, and 48, when a mad land distribution grab from the U.S. globalists, mostly with the support of Britain and the United States, arranged to take their land, distribute it to Zionist Jews that went to Israel. That's the result. It didn't just start on October 7th.
No, not at all.
My problem is, when you use the word genocide, I don't believe that, but I also don't have any meaningful video or picture source that I trust.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that no one does, right? Although I haven't seen the number of dead children, injured children, starving children coming out of the Ukraine-Russian conflict like we've seen come out of the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Isn't that because of the Palestinians and their amazing propaganda abilities? I think that's the reason, because the Palestinians put all this on camera and release it. They make sure that we see this.
No, Ukraine's propaganda is stunning too, that they're a democracy, that we're there to spread democracy when the US overthrew a democratically elected government in 2014. No, Palestinian propaganda rarely enters into the public discussion here. Almost all that we're inundated with is Israeli propaganda, is Israel first. Remember, they have the right to defend themselves. That's all they're doing. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. Well, if so, why don't the Gazans get to vote in their elections?
It's also undeniable that at this point, Israel has lost, or most charitably, is losing the propaganda war. Mm-hmm. And I know why. They're not fighting it as well as Hamas. They never have. Mm. And I think people gave them a huge benefit of the doubt in the beginning of this war. It was like we were still getting bombarded by images and false facts by the Palestinians. But it was like, you know what? We're impenetrably on Israel's side. We saw what you did on 10/7. But it's been 2 years now.
Yeah.
And I know Israel says, well, we still have 20 hostages left, or whatever the exact number is.
20 that are alive. 50, but I think they think 20 are still
that are alive.
Yeah.
But
by the way, Palestinians have about 3,500 hostages. Or the Israelis have about 3,500 hostages compared to about 50. And that's only saying the ones that have secret charges against them that aren't being tried yet. That charges are awaiting because the Israeli government has secret evidence on them. Some people say 10,000 hostages. So that is skewed too. That's another part of the Israeli propaganda where they just won't release the hostages. Well, guess what? They were under the ceasefire that Netanyahu broke. They're still willing to exchange hostages, by the way. But it is like 50 to 3,500.
My question is how long, and with all due respect to the hostages, how long can we justify nonstop war based on the hostages? And it's not that I have no empathy for the hostages. It's just at some point, war must stop, or at least we have to stop funding it at some point.
See, that's where I'm at. We don't need to fund it. That's where I'm at. I can't fix it. I can't even step in there and come up with a solution to repair it. You want to know why? I can't even relate to it. I don't live there. I don't live on either side. I certainly do not support Hamas ever, never couldn't even defend them in any position. However, I do know all the videos and pictures I've seen of these children. I do know that, but I can also say Americans don't want to fund this anymore. We just don't. And I also can say Israel, and even Lindsey Graham said it recently. He said, if Israel wanted to commit genocide, they could.
It could.
And you want to know what that is? That's an admission by Lindsey Graham saying that Israel is completely competent. Therefore, why are we funding it? If you look at
Yeah, we shouldn't fund it. That's the right idea. That's the real America First idea. But this idea that, hey, they're not committing a genocide because they could have done it quicker, that's just absurd. Would you use that when it comes to the German Holocaust? They took about, a few years to kill millions of people. But would you say, well, if it really was a genocide, they could have done it in one day? No, that's preposterous. This is a stupid line of reasoning. And Lindsey Graham and Megyn Kelly are wrong about that. But hey, I'm with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Stop funding it. The real America First solution is to get the hell out of there. Not just stop funding it. Withdraw all of our forces from that theater of the globe and destroy, just eliminate the U.S. bases that are housed there.
Israel, you have to recognize in the context of these conversations, not only are they such a strong economic country, not only have they proven that their military they're annihilating their enemy.
Totally.
They're going to finish the job, and they're saying they're going to finish the job. They also have nuclear weapons. This is a nuclear armed nation.
So you're saying you agree with all that, but they got it.
I'm saying America is a sinking ship. We're sinking so badly. Our children have no hope of ever buying a home in the future. We pass a budget that is overblown and ridiculous every single year. And we're going to be 40, we're 37 now. It'll be 40 trillion in a matter of who knows months or.
Amen.
With respect to Israel and like the sense it makes, this alliance, what I hear you saying is fine, but they've got it. They're actually not facing an existential threat right now. They've devastated all their immediate enemies all around Israel.
Yeah, and the bankroll of the U.S. overthrowing Iraq and Syria and Libya for them. almost overthrowing Iran. Regime change was on the table there too. And all those things were things that Netanyahu wanted. So did the neocons. So did the perverted idiots in the United States and the foreign policy dictates that they made too. But the fact remains.
So
Look at the action.
if this were a situation where Israel actually were on the verge of not existing,
I think we'd have a different conversation.
Okay, I
look
get
at,
it.
Look at that.
I believe in America first. We're not the world's policemen. We're not there to bail out other countries or subsidize their security. Any country, including Israel. Same if it was France or Japan or China or Russia or any country. That's the American spirit, is non-interventionism. That was the original cornerstone of America. Washington warned of the danger of entangling alliances. Jefferson said, peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none should be the American creed.
Just go by. I'm a action versus words person. So for me, I'm like, wow, the 12-day war with Iran, which I was totally like, we shouldn't be doing this. Israel's a nuclear armed nation. Look at the outcome there. They did nothing to Israel. They did shoot missiles in there, but did they really do anything to Israel? No.
Quite a few ballistic missiles got through the Iron Dome. They were able to kill, I think, a few hundred people there. They didn't do nothing for all the boasting about the Iron Dome, and the missiles on the U.S. and Israel side were being depleted. So they did do some damage to Israel.
And could they have? No. Israel's a nuclear armed nation.
Mm-hmm.
They're surrounded by their enemies per se, and that's constantly said over and over again. But Israel is a nuclear armed nation.
That part is very true. I mean, that's the biggest disincentive to any country attacking Israel, is that threat, which they're the only secret nuclear, power, by the way. They get a special carve out for that too, just like AIPAC gets a special lobbying carve out in the U.S.
Can nuke these people off the planet if they want to. And they have proven with their actions what they will do to their enemies, to the point of like I said, they're starving children in Gaza. There are innocent Christians have been killed. Christian churches have been bombed. They are proving that these 50 hostages that are left and they're demanding back, they are proving that they will turn the entire Gaza Strip to rubble to get their 50 people back. I think that's a country that America can say, they got it.
You got this.
But we're not doing the same thing for our people.
Yeah, man, that's the truth. Marjorie Taylor Greene is so much better and more based than Megyn Kelly, especially on this, man. She is totally right. They are starving children. They're consummating a genocide, and the U.S. is funding all of it. The U.S. just defers to Netanyahu and the Israel lobby for much of its foreign policy, not just related to this, but also related to Iran. And she's right. It's a nuclear power. Special carve-out. That's the foreign policy DEI that Israel gets on the bankroll of the United States. And, the U.S. is just complicit on it, and I don't see much changing other than the cultural trend on the right, some segments of the populist right, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, to raise awareness about this, expose the madness that this is. And no, I don't think that she even goes as far as I would as criticizing Israel and doing that. But at the same time, man, this is a good change. This is something I never expected to see in my lifetime, when it was only people like Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan on the right that even talked about this and raised, the sensible idea that's non-interventionism, even when it comes to Israel. So yeah, I just think Megyn Kelly's completely wrong. The propaganda that Americans are seeing, by and large, outside of a niche that really dives into this, is coming from Israel. It's coming from the Israel lobby, the influence over our corporate media, the influence that's in our deep state, and in the presidency and in Congress, where AIPAC lays claim to essentially 361 representatives. It's about 2/3, and they boast about how bipartisan it is. Well, bipartisan, they mean that the party is stupid and the party of evil collaborate to do Israel and Netanyahu's bidding. But I do want to hear from what you guys say. Let me know down below. Is Marjorie Taylor Greene right about this? Are her words indicative of a shift on the right on this issue? Is AIPAC going to be able to maintain this power? Let me know down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, also subscribe to Megyn Kelly. Thanks for this interview, despite my disagreements with you. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. Click the join button below. You can help support the channel, and in return, I'll give you access to all my members-only videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.